I once spent 6 months planning a business that never launched. I had spreadsheets. I had market research. I had a color-coded business plan that would make McKinsey consultants weep with joy. I designed a logo, created social media accounts, wrote out my entire first year's content calendar, and even bought a domain name that I was absolutely certain would be the next big thing. Then I never actually started the business because I was waiting for the perfect moment and for everything to be ready. Spoiler alert, there is no perfect moment, and you're never ready. That domain name expired 2 years ago, and someone in China now owns it. They're probably doing better with it than I ever would have. The business I actually ended up starting? I came up with the idea on a Tuesday, registered an LLC on Wednesday, had my first customer by Friday. No fancy business plan, no market research, no color-coded spreadsheets. Just a simple service that people needed, a way to deliver it, and the willingness to figure everything else out as I went. That business made $40,000 in its first year while I worked a full-time job, and I learned more about entrepreneurship in those 12 months than I did in 4 years of business school. Yes, I have a business degree. No, it did not prepare me for actually starting a business. Yes, I'm still paying off the loans. No, I don't want to talk about it. After reading The Lean Startup by Eric Ries and The 100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau, plus watching way too many failed entrepreneurs share their postmortems on indie hackers, I realized that most people overcomplicate starting a business. They think they need venture capital, a perfect product, a revolutionary idea, and a 50-page business plan. But the reality is way simpler and way less glamorous. You need to solve a problem people actually have, charge them money for it, and do it consistently. That's the whole thing. Everything else is just decoration. The common mistake, planning forever, starting never, here's where aspiring entrepreneurs completely derail themselves, and I know this intimately because I did it for years. They treat starting a business like a school project that needs to be perfect before submission. They spend months researching, planning, designing, optimizing, and preparing for every possible scenario. They join online courses about entrepreneurship, read books about business strategy, listen to podcasts about scaling startups, and never actually start anything because they're too busy learning and preparing. This is called analysis paralysis, and it's the #1 killer of business ideas. Not bad markets, not lack of funding, not competition. Just people overthinking themselves into inaction. There's a study from the Kauffman Foundation that found the average successful entrepreneur spent less than 30 days between having the idea and making their first sale. Meanwhile, failed entrepreneurs spent an average of 6+ months planning before launch. The correlation is pretty clear. People who plan forever tend to never start, and people who start quickly tend to figure it out. The problem is that business planning feels productive. Making spreadsheets feels like progress. Designing the perfect logo feels like you're building something. But none of that actually matters until you have a customer who gives you money. Everything before that first sale is just speculation and theory. You don't know if your business idea works until someone pays you for it. You can't optimize what doesn't exist yet. You can't scale before you start. I wasted 6 months on that first failed business idea because I was trying to make it perfect before launch. I kept thinking, once I finish the website, then I'll start. Then it was, once I have more social media content prepared, then I'll start. Then, once I take this one more course on marketing, then I'll be ready. That finish line kept moving because I was scared of actually putting myself out there and potentially failing. So I kept planning as a form of procrastination disguised as productivity. The core principle, start tiny, validate fast, then scale. Starting a business successfully comes down to a 3-step process that sounds almost too simple. Start with the smallest viable version, get customers immediately to validate the idea, then scale only what's working. This is the opposite of how most people think about entrepreneurship, where you build the whole thing first and then try to find customers. The Lean Startup methodology, which has basically become the standard for modern entrepreneurship, says you should start with an MVP, minimum viable product. This is the absolute simplest version of your business that can still deliver value to a customer. Not the polished version, not the fully featured version, just the bare minimum that solves the core problem. For a service business, your MVP might literally be you doing the work manually. For a product business, It might be a landing page describing the product and taking pre-orders before you've built anything. For a content business, it might be posting on social media for free until you build an audience. The goal is to find out if anyone actually wants what you're offering before you invest months building something nobody needs. Once you have your MVP, you need to get it in front of potential customers immediately. Not after you perfect it, not after you build out more features, right now while it's still rough and imperfect. You're testing two things. Will people pay for this? And does this actually solve their problem well enough that they'd recommend it to others? If the answer to both is yes, you have a viable business. If the answer to either is no, you need to pivot or quit before you waste more time. Only after you've validated that people will pay for your solution do you start scaling. This means improving the product, building systems, hiring help, investing in marketing. But you're scaling something that already works, which is way less risky than building something massive and hoping it works. Strategy 1. Pick a problem you've actually experienced. The easiest businesses to start are ones that solve problems you've personally experienced because you already understand the customer, the pain point, and what a good solution looks like. You don't need to do market research because you are the market. You know exactly what would have helped you when you had that problem. My first successful business was a resume writing service for people transitioning out of the military. I'm not a veteran, but I worked at a nonprofit that helped veterans find jobs, and I saw hundreds of people struggle to translate their military experience into civilian job applications. I knew exactly what they needed because I'd helped them manually for 2 years. So I started offering that service for $150 per resume, and immediately had more clients than I could handle because I actually understood the problem deeply. The key is to pick problems where people are actively searching for solutions and willing to pay for them. Not interesting problems, not world-changing problems, just annoying problems that people want fixed. Examples: businesses that help people organize their photos, that walk dogs for busy professionals, that teach specific software skills, that clean houses, that edit videos, that manage social media accounts, that do bookkeeping for small businesses. These aren't sexy, but they're profitable because they solve real problems that people are actively trying to fix. If you've ever thought, I wish someone would just, or why doesn't anyone offer, or this would be so much easier if, congratulations, you've just identified a potential business opportunity. The fact that you're frustrated by something means other people probably are too. Your job is to create the solution you wish existed and offer it to others with the same problem. Strategy 2. Start as a service, not a product. Here's something that took me way too long to figure out. Service businesses are way easier to start than product businesses. With a service business, you need basically zero upfront investment. No inventory, no manufacturing, no shipping logistics. You just need a skill that people will pay for and a way to deliver it. Product businesses require you to source materials, manufacture products, handle inventory, deal with shipping, manage returns, and invest money before you make a single sale. Service businesses let you get paid before you deliver the work, which means you're not spending your own money to get started. You can literally start a service business with $100 for an LLC filing fee and a basic website. The service I started required no special equipment or certifications. I already had the skills from my nonprofit work, I had a laptop, and I had internet access. My total startup costs were $80 for the LLC, $15 for the domain name, and about $30 per month for website hosting. I was profitable from my very first client because my only expenses were time and the small fixed costs. Even if you eventually want to build a product business, starting as a service lets you understand the market deeply, build relationships with customers, and accumulate capital that you can then invest into product development. Many of the most successful product companies started as service businesses. Basecamp started as a web design agency. MailChimp started as a web design firm that built an email tool for clients. The beautiful thing about service businesses is that you can start them literally today. Right now. You don't need permission, you don't need investors, you don't need a fully formed business plan. You just need to identify a service you can provide, find someone who needs that service, and deliver it competently. That's a business. Strategy 3. Use the 48-hour launch method. This is the framework I now use for every new business idea, and it's forced me to actually start things instead of planning them to death. The rule is simple. From the moment you have the idea to the moment you try to make your first sale, You have 48 hours maximum. If you can't launch in 48 hours, your idea is too complicated and needs to be simplified. Here's what you can do in 48 hours. Register your business name and get an LLC if your state allows online filing. This takes like 20 minutes and costs $50 to $150 depending on your state. Create a simple one-page website using Card or Wix or literally just a Google Doc. It doesn't need to be beautiful. It just needs to explain what you do, who it's for, and how people can pay you. This takes 2 to 3 hours max. Set up a payment method. Stripe or PayPal or Venmo or Square. Something that lets people give you money. This takes 10 minutes. Create one piece of marketing content, a post on LinkedIn, a Facebook post in a relevant group, an email to people in your network, a flyer at a local business, whatever makes sense for your target customer. This takes 1 hour. Then you wait and see if anyone bites. If people respond with interest, you have validation. Start delivering the service and figure out the details as you go. If nobody responds after a week, either your marketing was bad, your pricing was off, or nobody actually has the problem you think they have. Either way, you found out in 48 hours plus 1 week instead of 6 months of planning. I've used this method to test 5 different business ideas in the past 2 years. 2 of them got 0 interest, and I immediately abandoned them. 1 got moderate interest, but wasn't profitable enough to pursue. 2 of them turned into actual businesses that generate consistent revenue. That's a 40 success rate, which is pretty good for entrepreneurship. And I only wasted 48 hours on each failed idea instead of months. Quick business starting hacks 1. Productize your service with packages. Instead of custom pricing for every client where you're constantly negotiating scope and price, create 2 to 3 fixed packages at fixed prices. Bronze package for $200, silver for $500, gold for $1,000. Tell people exactly what's included in each package. This makes it easier for customers to buy because they don't have to negotiate, and it makes it easier for you to deliver because every project has clear boundaries. I increased my close rate by 40 just by switching to package pricing. 2. Use existing platforms before building your own. Don't build a custom marketplace or platform or app. Use Etsy, Fiverr, Upwork, Gumroad, Substack, or whatever existing platform already has your target customers. Yes, they take a cut, but they also bring you customers without you having to build an audience from scratch. Once you're making consistent money, then you can think about building your own platform. But starting on an existing platform dramatically reduces your time to first sale. 3. Pre-sell before you build. If you want to create a course, a product, or any kind of digital offering, create a landing page describing it and try to sell it before you actually make it. If people buy it, great. Now you have both validation and funding to actually create it. If nobody buys it, you just saved yourself months of work on something nobody wanted. I pre-sold my first online course to 15 people before I recorded a single video. Their money funded the production, and their feedback shaped the content. The realistic timeline. When does this actually make money? Let's be honest about what starting a business actually looks like financially, because the Instagram entrepreneurs with their rented Lamborghinis are lying to you. Here's a realistic timeline for a service-based business started part-time while working a full-time job. Month 1 to 3. You'll probably make $500, $2,000 total while you figure out your marketing, refine your offer, and get your first few clients. Most of this money will come from people in your existing network. You're basically breaking even after expenses, and the time investment is not profitable on an hourly basis. This is normal. Month 4 to 6. If you're consistent, you'll start making $1,000 to $3,000 per month. You're getting better at delivery, your processes are smoother, and you're starting to get referrals from happy clients. You might be making $20 to $30 per hour effectively, which isn't great, but also you're building something. Month 7 to 12. You could be at $2,000 to $5,000 per month if things are going well. You've built some systems, maybe hired help or automated parts of the process. Your hourly rate is probably $40 to $60, which is decent side income. Some months will be great, some will be slow. That's business. Year 2. This is when you decide if you're going to scale this into a full-time thing or keep it as side income. If you scale, you're looking at potentially $5,000 to $10,000 per month, but you'll need to invest more time and maybe money into marketing and systems. If you keep it part-time, you can maintain $2,000 to $4,000 per month pretty comfortably. These numbers are for service businesses where you're trading time for money. Product businesses and scalable digital businesses have different timelines, usually slower at first, but with more upside potential later. The truth about starting a business isn't about having a revolutionary idea or raising venture capital or quitting your job and going all in. It's about identifying a problem people have, creating a solution they'll pay for, and doing it consistently enough to build a customer base. That's it. Everything else is just details you figure out along the way. Most successful businesses are boring. They do taxes, clean offices, design websites, manage rentals, organize photos, walk dogs, tutor kids, fix computers, write content, edit videos, cook meals. These aren't going to make you Instagram famous or get you on Shark Tank. But they can make you $3,000 to $5,000 per month in side income, which for most people is life-changing money. The businesses that fail aren't the ones with bad ideas. They're the ones that never launch because the founder is still planning. Or the ones that launch too big and run out of money before they find customers. Or the ones that don't adapt when the first version doesn't work. You avoid all of these by starting small, launching fast, and being willing to pivot. I'm not a successful entrepreneur in the sense that I've built a massive company or sold a startup for millions. But I've started 3 profitable businesses while working full-time jobs, and they've collectively made me over $200,000 in additional income over the past 4 years. That money paid off my student loans, funded this YouTube channel, and gave me financial flexibility that my day job alone never would have. And it all started when I stopped planning and started doing. When I gave myself permission to launch something imperfect and figure it out as I went. When I picked a problem I understood, created a simple solution, and asked people to pay me for it. You can do the same thing. Pick a problem you've experienced. Create the simplest possible solution. Give yourself 48 hours to launch. See if anyone pays you for it. Then iterate from there. You'll learn more in your first week of actually doing business than in 6 months of planning. That domain name I bought and never used still haunts me. Don't be like past me. Be like current me who just starts things and sees what happens.